Hey my friends, how are you? It's been a minute since I've made some videos, but I do have a couple for you. And the first one is, this is an interesting deck, and I'll preface this video by saying there's a newer edition of this deck on the artist's website, which I did not know when I purchased this version. So there are essentially three editions. There's a first edition, this is the second, which is a limited edition of 100. And then there's a third edition, which, as I understand it, each of the three editions has some differences. They are at their core the same deck, but I know, for example, one of the suits in the third edition is completely redesigned. But I do think there are still some of the second edition. I have not seen the first, but just in reading the guidebook a bit and looking at the cards and following the creator's Instagram and viewing their website, I realized what I probably should have done was purchase the third edition, or the third volume it's called, but for some reason when I went to their website I didn't see that, so I ordered the second edition. But I have number 41 out of 100, so if they're being sold in order, then there's probably, a handful left. So this is the Bridge Witches Tarot deck, second edition, by Killer Pancake Illustration. And they are Killer Pancake on Instagram. I'm actually going there right now to make sure I'm right. Yes. Killer Pancake on Instagram. And the link to their art and their website is on that page, on their Instagram link. But I'll try to remember to put it below. So this is a cool deck. This is a deck that's inspired entirely by the artist's city of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And in the deck, you will find representations of the neighborhoods and the people that she sees and knows and has learned about over the years. And I'm calling the artist she, but I actually don't know that's necessarily the pronouns they use. So I should be more thoughtful about that. At any rate, so it's a deck and a guidebook, and the guidebook is really nice, and it is one of those guidebooks where the author-artist talks about what's in the picture you're seeing. The only thing about this guidebook that I honestly do not like is that I haven't found anywhere where it gives you the suit correspondences. So the suits in this deck are different except for cups. There's trees, fences, cicadas, and cups. But I did go to their website and I found they do reference it there. I just didn't find it in the guidebook. So fences are swords, cicadas are pentacles, and trees are wands, and then obviously cups are cups. So I did sort of have to figure that out as I did research. But it's a really nice book. It's a really nice, thoughtfully written explanation of the cards and the choices, and as I walk through, I'll read a couple examples for you. So let's take a look at the deck. This looks like it comes from like a print-on-demand site based on the quality of the box. The cards are sort of cardstock playing card, not like the plastic bicycle playing card, but like tarot stock. It's pretty standard. The box is fine. Honestly, I've looked at this deck, I just really adore it. I don't love when there's text on the back. This isn't the worst. The third edition does not have this back from what I can tell. So it's a tiny, tiny pet peeve of mine. It would be worse if it were like even more branding. It's called the Bridge Witches for the BW. It's all right. It's just not my favorite thing. I have it upside down. But, I mean, if it didn't have that, I'd love this back. It's funny. I wish I could not have that. But it's fine. Alright, so I'm going to zoom in and we're going to look at the cards, and let me just read to you the about this deck from the guidebook so you know what we're doing here. So Killer Pancake is Genevieve Barber Turner, an artist and illustrator based in Pittsburgh, PA. Inspired by her surroundings, she illustrates the communities she has worked and lived in, highlighting the grace of everyday life. After 3 years of collecting voices on a podcast called the AP Collection, she amassed a large selection of stories that have broadened and challenged her feelings about living in Pittsburgh. This has culminated in the creation of Bridge Witches, a tarot deck. The deck illustrates the people and places in the city of Pittsburgh, blended with retelling of the Rider-Waite She talks about how the suits reflect the north, south, east, and west ends of the city, its seasons, its history, and lesser represented communities that make Pittsburgh what it is. The Bridge Witches was researched by traversing the neighborhoods, talking to people, sifting through documents at multiple libraries, and she dedicates it to the 10th Ward. Now, it's specifically referencing Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't, if it was like that sort of specific to that city, I probably wouldn't have ordered it because I wouldn't have felt a call to it. But I saw it on Duff Tarot's Instagram page and said, oh, that's a really cool deck. So it's not so Pittsburghian that those of us who live outside of Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania in general won't find something in it. So here's the Fool. This is a self-portrait of the artist, which is different apparently from the first edition, which, she says she drew herself looking more as she does today. Excuse me. Here's the Magician. And I'll just read an example for you of the way that the guidebook talks about it. So there are meanings, creative power, and prowess, a time of manifestation of one's will, talent, drive, totality. Basically, the universe is presenting you with the opportunity to be a total badass boss of yourself and your surroundings. That's the upshot. The downside is trickery, deceit, cunning, manipulation, using that badass bossiness to no good end. The used car salesman of this deck, I actually like that. It could also mean that there is an imbalance of that stasis of heaven and earth. And so she talks about the magician is depicted as a businessman, a nod to the archetype of shrewdness that follows this figure. The modern businessman has traded his briefcase in for a book bag, and the straps are undone to show that the man-made cycle must be broken. This sentiment is echoed by the use of the broken Ouroboros, indicating a break in the cycle and a call to change what has always been. The snake's white scales are physical portrayal of institutional racism and breaking the standard of whiteness that pervades society, even in our small liberal city. Our magician is drawn from the memory of a man in business attire running for a bus while wearing a book bag. So the artist is telling us why they made what they did. So here's the Empress. I'm sorry, that was the Popess. Here's the Empress. Here's the Emperor. She talks about choosing to make the Emperor a woman. Why is this Emperor a woman? Honestly, it's because when reading up about the card, I thought about a woman. Specifically, I thought about a few different women who are lead singers in their bands. The lead singer becomes a king holding court. So, there's women stand in for all the things maternal and precious. That's fine. No, not really. But I guess it's certainly true to life. Traditionally, tarot uses men to depict masculine energy and the power and devotion that it provides. And so there's a choice here to use a woman to depict a traditionally masculine energy. So to use the masculine energy of the emperor by depicting a woman, I think is an interesting choice. So the Hierophant. This is an interesting one too. Prom has a decades-old history with its own rules and expectations. Contests to create your prom dress using duct tape or other unconventional materials are ways in which teens subvert the opulence that prom is normally associated with, while still giving prom a cultural pedestal on which to stand. Here in Western Pennsylvania, camo prom dresses are a nod to the deep-rooted hunting culture. The contrast between the harshness of camo against the softness of the open shoulder dress is mirrored in the Hierophant's physical form. Camouflage marks her as the hunter, lurking, waiting to make a move. The towering, blood-soaked antlers, however, proclaim her as the hunted. With her eyes closed and an almost luminescent blonde hair, there is vulnerability to her stance. She is both the desirer and the object of desire, a duality that is not specific to what can be seen. So, I won't read all of them, but I wanted to just give you a taste of the guidebook so that you can see that the artist is exploring the choices and explaining the choices in the deck. So here's the Lovers. This is the Chariot. This is Fortitude. This is the Hermit. This is the Wheel of Fortune. Justice. Now, I don't know what cards are changing. I think in the website I read this morning that the majors are more or less the same, and really the big changes, I think it's the suit of cicadas. Death. Temperance. The Devil. The Tower. So you can see it's not so Pittsburghian that, you know, you have to sort of be a local to get it. I think it goes with the Waite-Smith enough. Here's the Moon, the Sun, Judgment. It's an unusual Judgment card for sure. It's not my favorite, but it's not the World. And then we get into the suits. So the cicadas are, I'm very lazy about learning. Cicadas are pentacles. I always just sort of get a little anxious when people rename the suits, not because I don't appreciate it, but because I have a hard time remembering what they are. So cicadas is pentacles, so here's the ace. Here's the 2. The 3. This didn't come in order, by the way. I had to put it in order. So I looked at these earlier. Here's the 4. Now, I will say I don't get actual clear, immediate connections to the Rider-Waite-Smith cards when I look at these. I have to look a little closer before I sort of make the connection to them. If I'm thinking about the Rider-Waite-Smith suit of pentacles, this isn't sort of leaping to me as examples of Rider-Waite-Smith. They actually seem to be telling their own story. So that's something worth knowing. I don't mind that. In fact, I quite like when people take a leap of into something new. But yeah, I'm just sort of looking at the guidebook, and they don't, you know, they're not. Their meanings themselves aren't far from Waite-Smith, but the images don't necessarily connect immediately. And I'm fine with that. Here's the 9. Here's the 10. And then there's page, knight with an N, not a K. So page, knight. This is the only knight that has a K. I don't know if that's a typo, but all the other knights are with an N instead of a K, or without a K, I guess I should say. Here's the Queen. And the King. And so then we go into cups. There's the Ace of Cups, the 2 of Cups, the 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and now we have the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. So fences is swords, right? Yes, because trees are wands. So this would be swords. Here's the ace, the 2, the 3. I really like this, and that even though you can sort of see there's a heart with arrows in it, it's not the typical Waite-Smith 3, which you know I appreciate. Here's the 4, the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, page, knight, queen, and king. And then finally we have trees, which would be wands. So here we have the ace of trees, the 2 of trees, 3 of trees, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then there's the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. So I think the art is really gorgeous. I think it has, I think it's digital, but it has a painterly feel to it. It shuffles nicely. It's not, it's, you know, it is sort of, it feels like that cardstock you get from print-on-demand companies, like Make Playing Cards, like Game Crafter. But I don't mind that because it shuffles really well, so I'm just gonna shuffle and just do a layout. So really, truly, the only thing that just leaps out at me is something that I'm not in love with is the letters on the back. I just don't like that. But, I mean, the choice of the leaves and the color combination is beautiful. I'm just very, very weird about that. I don't like branding on the back of decks. Because then it takes it to a place of being an advertisement rather than a tool for readings, in my humble opinion. Not so humble opinion. Alright, let's just lay out a square. So yeah, the cardstock, it's thin cardstock. Like, I'm not gonna lie about the cardstock, it's thin. But it's beautiful. Look how beautiful that looks. This is, again, you know, when I talk about representation in tarot a lot, I haven't really talked about that here. The artist did in the intro. What I say is that if I'm reading for someone else, I kind of have the expectation from modern decks that when I lay out a spread, there should be at least one card, if not half, that depicts the person I'm reading for in some way, you know what I mean? And so this is a much more representational deck than I've seen. This is not a tokenism deck, at least in terms of balance. Now, what I can't speak to, because I don't live in Pittsburgh and I obviously am a white person, is whether this is authentic representation of the people of this community. But this looks like the world I see when I leave my apartment. You know what I mean? So I think in that regard, and that was one reason why I picked it up. I also love the richness of the colors. I love that the art feels hand done, whether it's digital or painted. I want to feel the connection to the maker, and I do that here. So I think this is a really beautiful deck. I really, really like the guidebook as well. I really appreciate that the artist has given us the reasons and the impulses and the people. There are a few cards in this deck that I saw that actually represent real people or depict real people, and the artist talks about their history in there. So I think it's great. I really do. It's about as successful a deck as I've seen in that regard. It is a limited edition. The 3rd edition is out. I believe the Suit of Cicadas has been pretty heavily revised from what I can tell, but you can visit the artist's website and you can find them on Instagram. Let me just go back. I really need to try to remember to put this in the description, but I'm so bad at doing that. Yeah, Killer Pancake illustration. And I think it's fantastic. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.